Let's talk to Daniel Sahig, who is the Director of Stand for All, a specialist in international refugee law. Daniel, are you a solicitor yourself who represents people who want to asylum claims in this country, or what's your own involvement with the organisation of Stand for All?
No, I'm not a solicitor. My background is international refugee law, but I work on the policy side of things and the advocacy side, so I don't represent clients.
What do you think is going to happen this week, Daniel?
I think the government's in a really tricky position on this. They're putting forward a bill that, let's put this in context. Last week, the Home Secretary had to admit there are significant human rights abuses still going on in Rwanda to do with political opposition. So they're up against a background where they're trying to balance the two sides of the party for a bill that will declare Rwanda safe no matter what happens in Rwanda. Only this weekend, Burundi closed its border with Rwanda due to security concerns of people coming across from Rwanda in conflict. So they've got this background to a bill that effectively is saying whatever happens, whether Rwanda goes to war or anything else, it's safe. And they've got massive splits in their own party on it. So they've made a rod for their own back by even bringing this bill forward, to be honest.
What do you think about the principle in general? Rwanda we can talk about in a second, and I want to give you the time and space to do that if you want to. But the principle in general of processing people overseas, is that something that you are against?
I am against it. Mainly, we've seen a tragedy today of 5 people losing their lives in the Channel. Now, if death isn't a deterrent for people, then nothing is, quite frankly. I think what we need to be doing, we're investing, I think it's about 400 million so far in the Rwanda plan. If we can invest that into our own systems so we can process applications better, more faster and more effectively, so we know who's coming in, we know that they are, that we're checking the claims properly, we're doing everything properly on security, then we've got a better system. Because otherwise, we see people, and we're seeing it at the moment, of people leaving the asylum system and going, because most people come here because they've got family ties or community ties. They're going into their communities, going off the radar and going underground. That puts them at more risk of exploitation. But it also means the government can't keep track of where people are. Now, if we actually process the claims properly and we make sure that people can access asylum in the UK, we've got a better chance of ensuring that we're keeping track of those numbers as well.
I actually think we're in danger of agreeing on this, Daniel. I mean, do you think that the Rwanda plan is actually perhaps, not smokescreen's the wrong word, but a distraction anyway from the fact that there are, 175,000 people caught in the system in the backlogs? I mean, that to me is the thing that needs to be sorted out. It's the processing, not a very, very small threat of being sent to Rwanda. Although I'm sure there are viewers and listeners who totally agree with this policy, but I'm struggling to see the point of it.
I think we both agree on this. I mean, Rwanda has a capacity for about 200 applications per year. So we're talking really very small numbers. Now, most people, when they seek asylum in any country, don't know the specific asylum laws of that country, because you go in there, as I said, mainly family ties. But even those who do know about the Rwanda policy, they know that it's a very small chance. So it's not acting as a deterrent. People are prepared to play the numbers on this. We need to be focusing on investing in our own systems so that we can sort things out. We need to clear that backlog. I know just after Christmas, it was announced that, we've cleared the legacy backlog, and then the figures showed that...
I mean, that was a slight massaging of the figures, exactly. I worry, Daniel. I mean, in terms of asylum seekers in this country in general, we have actually a very good record. We are a compassionate country. Most people who apply for asylum get it. It's in the 70%, is that correct?
It's about 70-75%.
Yeah. So we are a compassionate country. We've taken in loads of people from Ukraine, for example. We've taken in lots of people from Hong Kong. There are legal and safe routes to come here. Why do you think people are still coming across in boats?
Well, with the Ukraine scheme, it's worth mentioning that's actually just a limited visa route. It was a 3-year visa route. So we've got people who are now worrying about what happens when that runs out. And that's going to add more issues later on unless the government can put in place extensions for that. But people are coming here, as I said, I keep going back to this, it's predominantly they come because they've got community ties. Now, we've seen last week... But
that doesn't quite explain, Daniel, does it, why people risk their life in boats?
But when people, for example, Afghans is a big example at the moment. The government released a report last week about its safe routes. Now, on what's known as the Afghan Citizen Resettlement Scheme, they brought in 224 people year ending September 2023. That's a massive drop off from the previous year. And one of the main nationalities making channel crossings are Afghans. So we've seen there is that route in theory, but people can't access it. So they're using other routes and they're using the irregular routes to come across because safety is a very personal thing. It's, we can all say about, oh, France is a safe country. I love France. I'll go on holiday there. But for people who, if English is your primary language or you've got family ties, you're fleeing somewhere where you're at risk.
But I just never understand. Maybe I'm naive, Daniel, but I never understand why, people argue they don't want to be in France for whatever reason. France is a safe country. You're meant, or you not, to claim asylum in the first safe country that you come to. And I just think even with this horrendous news today, absolutely dreadful that these 5 migrants have now died attempting to cross the Channel, there will be people who just don't have sympathy for, not necessarily those people, but people risking their lives coming across the Channel because they think, why on earth are you doing this?
There's always going to be people who disagree with myself and people I disagree with on this. There isn't actually a thing in international law about first safe country. There's no requirement for someone to do that. The closest you're going to get is what's known as the Dublin regulations. That's what governs the EU and what we used to be part of. They have a hierarchy of which member state has to process claims. The first port of entry, first member state they enter, is actually the bottom rung of those. Mm-hmm. The main one, going back to it again, so is family ties. But people have their very individual, very personal reasons why they seek asylum in the UK. And we need to look at those and look at those reasons if we're to actually process applications and look at why people make these journeys. Because until we start looking at what the cause is and why people are driven to come make those journeys, why they're driven to risk their lives, we're not going to stand a chance of actually reducing channel crossings. And that's something that I think we all agree on, whatever stance we take on this. Nobody wants to see people risking their lives crossing one of the world's busiest shipping routes. So we need to be looking at ways that we can, in a practical sense, in a genuine sense, reduce those crossings.
Daniel,
and we're not really doing that at the moment.
Daniel, thank you very much indeed for your thoughts on that. That's Daniel Saheg there, who is Director of Stand for All, which is a specialist in international refugee law. So thank you to him.